Alright, we're back for our first match with mono blue. Take a look at this hand. I presume this is a keep, although it is a little land heavy. You know, one drop in the Spell Pierce. Brazen Borrower is a backup threat plus interaction. So I decided to keep it. It looks like we're up against blue-white control. Immediately draw another land. Play Ascendant Spirit and passes. Our opponent shocks in, does nothing. Cycles near gated farmland and passes. Whole bunch of back and forth doing nothing. We take no actions, play a Faithless Haven so we can attack next turn potentially. They decide to cycle a Shark Typhoon. They do nothing. We go ahead and grow our Ascendant Spirit. Attack. They chump. And we pass. They pay a Memory Deluge. We Spell Pierce it. Spell Pierce obviously will run out of some amount of steam. So we go ahead and pump it up. We draw a Rattle Chains. We could have played Curious Obsession there, but I think it was just continue to play the strategy we're on, which is be patient, force our opponent to take actions. Go ahead and flash in Brazen Borrower here. Now, Supreme Verdict obviously would be annoying, but they're just dead if they verdict us, so opponent casts a Teferi Hero and concedes. So, not a whole lot interesting there in game number 1 against blue-white control. Alright, taking a look at sideboarding. I do believe we brought in most of the Lofty Denials and the copies of Mystical Dispute. Ordered out some Shacklegeists on the island and a Otawaru, especially since we're on the jaw. Might have been incorrect to board out Icon of Ancestry, but I think we want to play more of a flash deck instead of kind of trying to play a grindy game. So, might have been correct or incorrect to side that one out. Taking a look at this opener, it's quite nice. Get to flash in Spectral Sailor, hold up Lofty Denial. Our opponent just does their thing. So, turn 1, we play Mausoleum Wanderer. May not have been correct to play that out, but alas, it's what we do. Our opponent goes ahead and marches it. So, we just play an island and pass. So we can play Spectral Sailor and hold up Mystical Dispute. Our opponent, once again, does nothing. Just attack in, start chipping away at them. Opponent, once again, does nothing. Hit them. Do I cast the Spectral Sailor or Mausoleum Wanderer? I do. Just to increase the pressure. We play March of the Rolly Light. Portable Hole. We cast Lofty Denial. They just let it go. Just protect it because it was their only way of drawing cards at the time. And these counters do get worse as the game goes along. So go ahead and flash in. Or draw a card with Spectral Sailor still holding up Mystical Dispute. Continuing this game of chipping away at our opponent. They cycle Censor. They have Field of Ruin. We draw another card. Do nothing. Continue to pressure them. Do nothing. Portable Hole. We flash in Rattle Chains. They still have nothing. Pass turn. Presume at the end step they will do nothing again. Okay. So we once again attack them for 3. Whole lot of nothing going on. That cycles another Censor. Goes for Verdict of Supreme. We flash in a couple copies of Spectral Sailor, I would presume here. And we'll probably fire up a Faceless Haven, which I do believe we do here. Unfortunately, I skipped through my combat step. Made this matchup a little bit more difficult than it should be. Our opponent should be at 4 right now. Now they have 2 Field of Ruins up against my Spectral Sailors. So, go ahead and fire in with these. Our opponent looks like they're cycling a Shark Typhoon. 4-2. Gets to block one of our guys. We play an Ascendant Spirit out. They Field of Ruin us at the end of turn. We float the mana, pump it into Ascendant Spirit. Opponent continues to do the things. They play a Lyra. We play Lofty Denial. They just let it go. We pump up the Jam. They Field of Ruin again. Seems suspect, but whatever. We draw another Faceless Haven. Pump up the Jam again. We now have a 6-power flying attacker. They have to chump block. And they're in a world of trouble because we have the ability to draw cards, 2 soft counter spells. They play a Teferi. We play a Mystical Dispute. They pay mana. We Spell Pierce it. And they be dead. Lesson in Patience against blue-white control. Alright, matchup number 2. Unfortunately, it loses the die roll. We open up with this opener of Spectral Sailor Island Curious Obsession. Seems like a pretty good keep to me, especially with Geistlight Snare. Plenty of pressure. Opponent opens on Hall of the Storm Giants. We play Land and Pass. Opponent goes Swamp. So some type of weird Phoenix build. Pass the turn. Go ahead and slap a Curious Obsession on there since we can hold a counterspell up. Opponent has a counterspell, or a Fatal Push. We counter. They have another Fatal Push. We start getting in for 2. We cast that. We cast Supreme Phantom and pass. Opponent taps out for a Shieldred. We just take the damage. Cast a Supreme Phantom. Cast Ascendant Spirit. Chunk in for 7 here. At this point, we're just going to try to race them. They play out probably a Phoenix maybe at the end step. Yep, they tap out for an Arclight Phoenix. Play a land. We go ahead and do that. We have Rattle Chains as kind of a surprise for them. They chump block again. Opponent gains some life. They play another Evangel of Synthesis, draw some cards. Swing in for 7 here. 7 is lethal, so we have to block the Shieldred with our non-flying creature. Still hold up Rattle Chains because we have lethal on board. Play Supreme Phantom. Play Curious Obsession. And opponent is dead. So we saw some type of like amalgamation of almost like parts of Esper Greasefang with a Synthesis and Shieldred out of the board with Arclight Phoenixes, but they also don't seem to have a ton of like cantrips and such, so their deck seems a little unique. Just like I boarded out in the 1-of copy of Icon of Ancestry and a 1-of Shacklegeist for a couple copies of Lofty Denial. Not entirely sure that's correct, but our opponent was playing something a little weird, so taking a look at our opening hand, we have some nice pressure, no counter spells, but I think this hand's a reasonable keep. Opponent leads on a land, we play and pass. We don't flash in Spectral Sailor here. Opponent does nothing. We flash in Sailor, presuming it's going to die. Does not. We go ahead and attack here. Pressure them a little bit. Play out Shacklegeist, which they kill. The amount of disrespect on this guy just seems quite amazing. They thought Sea's Wandering, the Mausoleum Wanderer. Guess it's because the card that annoys them the most. Opponent casts Consider. They cast Heartless Act and Ray of Enfeeblement. Bring back Phoenix. I think at this point we're going to die. So I do believe I bounce with Brazen Borrower. Ghost drops us to 17. We just hold up Brazen Borrower instead of casting Shacklegeist. They consider, put a hull, they duress, find nothing. Next turn they'll be able to cast Arclight. We get to cast Brazen Borrower, get on the race train, cast that, cast Shacklegeist. Hit them for 3 in the air. They cast an Arclight Phoenix. They go to combat and swing. Swing, bada bada, swing, bada bada, swing, bada bada, swing. And then we go ahead and hit them in the mouth for that. Hoping to shut down Phoenix if they happen to draw one. They have Ledger Shredder. We tap down the Phoenix, untap. Tap down the Ledger Shredder, hit them for 6. At this point, we should be in pretty good shape. They duress us, play a Consider. So they can hit us for 8 here, but 8 is not 9. And then we get to untap and kill them. So, close matchup against a unique brew. I guess they're mainly like Evangel Synthesis and Ledger Shredder, along with Shieldred and Arclight Phoenix, which seems fine, but we didn't see like any delve spells out of them or anything. So it remains to be seen if they have like Treasure Cruise or Dig Through Time in their deck. But it's an interesting take on things, primarily blue-black with just splashing Phoenixes maybe. Alright, taking a look at the opening hand in match number 3. We have Spectral Sailor, Spell Pierce, a bunch of stuff. Seems reasonable. They lead on Den of the Bugbear. So we lead on nothing because they could very easily be on Rakdos, which looks like they are. We flash in Spectral Sailor. They kill it with a power word kill. Interesting. We play one Mausoleum Wonder. We play hold up Spell Pierce, it looks like. Okay, we Spell Pierce that. Go ahead and cast Mausoleum Wonder, cast Supreme Phantom, kind of get on the aggro plan here. Hopefully we can aggro them out before they can get too nuts. They decide to Dreadbore. It's possible we should just let that go. But we hold Supreme Phantom in play. We cast Spectral or Icon of Ancestry. Hold up the ability to Spectral Sailor. They cast Fable of the Mirror Breaker and Blood Tithe Harvester. We flash in Spectral Sailor. We do this main phase, cast a Shacklegeist, swing in for a bunch. Opponent discards some cards, Fatal pushes, stomps, hits us for 5. Casts a Bone Crusher Giant. We find another Shacklegeist, smack them for 3. Have the ability to activate Icon. And then they scoop it up. So we won game 1 against Rakdos. Alright, so as far as sideboarding, once again, I am no mono blue spirit savant, so I was just kind of taking a shot in the dark here. Boarded out 3 copies of Shacklegeist, which may or may not be correct, because obviously the tap-down ability can be important in racing situations. And I want a Brazen Borrower to bring in 4 copies of Shore Up. It's possible you're supposed to bring in Slip Out the Back. I'm not sure, but kind of left the deck intact other than that. Maybe you're supposed to board out even Curious Obsession against a heavy removal deck. But taking a look at our opening hand, we have Spectral Sailor, Gaslight Snare, Shore Up. So we only have 1 creature, which is problematic, and it's not even the best threat, but still. Opponent leads on Thoughtseize, takes our Spectral Sailor. We play an island, go. Opponent plays Blood Tithe Harvester, which resolves, unfortunately. We get Supreme Phantom. We choose not to play it to try to play around some removal spells here, but We play out Supreme Phantom. Opponent does the thing. Goes ahead and cast Dreadbore. We try to cast Shore Up. They have Fatal Push. So, once again, we're a little light on creatures. I probably should have fired up Faceless Haven here and just started racing. Shacklegeist go. Opponent with Castle Lockdown activation. Opponent should be at 4 less life at this point. But at this point we fire up the Faceless Haven. They kill our thing. So the opponent could be at 3 right now. How relevant that is, I'm not sure. Because now they actually have blockers. And now they cast a Shieldred. They're just going to tap out. Shieldred resolves. And at that point, our chances of winning the game just go to 0. So, I guess... No, even if we drew Brazen Borrower and bounced Shieldred, we still go to 3, and then we're dead to whatever. So, like I said, missing the attack that one turn might have been relevant here. Would have given us some top decks like Brazen Borrower to fight through this Shieldred, but yeah, hindsight's 2020. Alright, looks like I didn't change any sideboarding for game number 3. We're not going to play this time. We open with a little bit of a land heavy hand, but we do have Faithless Haven and Spell Pierce, so we can at least protect our hand from a discard spell if they try to go after our one threat. They play a Swamp and pass. We play a land and pass here. Opponent plays nothing. We're kind of left in this awkward position where if we play Rattle Chains out, then we just get kind of blown out. Still been in mind to correct to jam there, but they're once again continuing to hold up mana. They cast Misery Shadow, which unfortunately there's nothing we can do about. Rattle Chains go. Cast Supreme Phantom. Main phase, which may or may not be correct here. Fatal Push. We cast Shore Up. It doesn't die. So we still have Spell Pierce open. Opponent with a Misery Shadow. Opponent then resolves Shieldred. So can fire this in. They take the damage. Shieldred allows them to kind of counter race. We Spell Pierce. They pay for it. They fire in with just Shieldred. We draw Rattle Chains. Force them to chump block here, which they do. Gains life back up to 8. Discard a Shieldred, gain some life, which puts, I think, this game out of range. Now they can just try to cast Rattle Chains to chump block. They have the Fatal Push, and now they can just kind of go to town with Misery Shadow and kill us. So even if they didn't have the Stomp there, we're still just dead to Shieldred unless we specifically had Brazen Borrower in hand. So, or I guess technically Slip Out the Back would also be an out at that point, but we would have to do a considerable amount of damage to them for that to be relevant. So, and even if they didn't have the Stomp, they could have just pumped this Misery Shadow twice. So, that's the Rakdos matchup. It's tight but difficult. Alright, so quick deck tech with Mono Blue Spirits. This version is by Hiro Sukai, which I believe is the current Pioneer trophy leader. Now, I am not a Mono Blue Spirits expert by any means. Most of my experience with mono blue tends to come from when it was a standard deck several years ago and had a lot of the same cards. Mainly it was just this blue-based Curious Obsession deck. So I'm not the best Spirits player in the world, but I have some basis of experience with the deck. As far as what the deck's trying to do, you're a tempo deck with a bunch of mono blue spirits. You have Spectral Sailor, Mausoleum Wanderer, Ascendant Spirit. Ascendant Spirit obviously puts a lot of pressure on your opponent. Is a pump creature that you can use your mana throughout the thing. Mausoleum Wanderer is this spirit that grows as you play other spirits, and can also potentially counter your opponent's instants or sorceries. And then obviously Spectral Sailor is a 1/1 flash creature that can also draw cards in the mid to late game, and is just a nice threat for the deck. Rattle Chains, kind of a dual threat, allows you to protect your creatures from removal spells, also allows you to play your other spirits with flash. Shacklegeist allows you to kind of tap down at the cost of 2 of your creatures for a turn, slowing your opponent's advance potentially, or clearing blockers out of the way. Supreme Phantom, the main lord for the team, is a 1/3 on its own, so it doesn't always die to things like Stomp and such. And then, obviously, Brazen Borrower isn't a spirit, but the adventure creatures having access to petty theft, etc. is kind of important. Icon of Ancestry is a 1/of. I believe I first saw this from Autumn Burchett when they did well with spirits when it was in Standard. It pumps your team and also gives you the ability to look at the top cards of your library, and if there happens to be a spirit creature among them, you get to cantrip that. Obviously, it doesn't play quite nicely with Brazen Borrower, but still is a solid thing overall. Spell Pierce and Geistlight Snare to kind of disrupt what your opponent's doing. And then Curious Obsession as a way to accrue card advantage and not run out of cards when you're trying to tempo your opponent out. The reason you're a Snow mana base is, first off, Ascendant Spirit. Obviously, this is quite important. Main reason you're doing it, and then also copies of Faceless Haven being a threat your opponent has to answer. 1/of copy of Otawaro is a way to bounce your opponent's problematic permanents, and then just playing a bunch of snow-covered islands. Sideboard, Mystical Disputes, mainly bring them in against blue decks, blue-whites, Spirits, Mirrors, etc. Unlicensed Hearse gives you some game against Greasefang in particular, also against Arclight Phoenixes, which recurring Phoenixes can be quite the nightmare for your deck. Shore Up is a way to play around a bunch of removal spells. Slip Out the Back, besides the terrible naming of the card, puts +1/+1 counter on creatures and it phases out. This can be a way to remove creatures for a turn or just blank your opponent's removal. And then Lofty Denial when you just need more semi-hard counters. Obviously Lofty Denial with flying creatures becomes a good mana leak. Otherwise it's a bad force spike, so take it or leave it. But it is a solid card to have access to in your mono blue tempo deck when you need a little bit more counter spells when your opponent's going to play a bunch of stuff you carry about. Decks like Enigmatic Fires or and Karuga Fires, etc. That's going to be very important, as they don't really have a bunch of spot removal, but they do have a bunch of hard-hitting threats and sweepers, so that can be important to have extra counters in those matchups, or against decks like Lotus Field Combo where you need to be pressuring and disrupting them. But that is Mono Blue Spirits, and obviously you saw the matches we played. Like I said, I am no expert, but the deck seems to perform reasonably well as long as you understand that sometimes patience is a virtue, and other times you have to get aggressive and just try to get your opponent dead. Kind of all the things about playing Spirits is it's an interesting mix of those things. So, as always, if you like this type of Pioneer content, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hope to see you for the next video.